The land will be always here, but we come and go, we come and go, and when we come, we own it, control it, and do as we please with it. But then we'll leave it, and then the next generation take over, and generation after that. My name is Mangafel. When you say Mangafel, then almost a lot of people here in Yap knows where Mangafel is from and knows that it is attached to a property in a certain village. It's a very serious thing to lose your land. You cannot use the name attached to that property. Sort of a man without the country. A man who has no identity whatsoever.
Land is very important in Micronesia. It is land from which people spring, and land they return to when they die. Human beings have a mystical bond with their land. Land defines people.
It's one of the sayings in Bombay that one of the things that a man could sacrifice his life for is land.
Land is power, land is prestige, and land is beauty.
Land should be kept safe regardless. Land is our security. When everything else fails, we have land to go back to. The winds of change may blow, but at the end, we'll still have our land. During the post-war years, the protection of land was recognized with the passing of legislation designed to prevent Micronesians from losing their land to foreigners.
I guess those people who are responsible for this law is people like me who went outside FSM to go to school, and most of us went to Hawaii. That's where we really saw the difference. Now, we saw, for example, in Hawaii, the real owner of all Hawaiian is almost landless. And the other people who are not really originally from Hawaii now hold and have a control of that. So it's that kind, grown from our experience in the Pacific area, to come up with such a law.
This policy also served to avoid a repetition of the pre-war Japanese colonial period, which saw the exploitation of the islands and its people.
But we must also understand that Japan came with a different agenda. They wanted to develop these islands for their own use, and perhaps the rumor was that they wanted to bring in Japanese people to live on these islands. They wanted develop.
The land here needed to be protected from getting out of the Yapese hand, the Chuukese hand, and Ponape hand.
They protect the interests of the island so that the island stay our island, and the restriction was put in there with the fear that if we allow any ownership by outside, anyone can come in and purchase these islands and own them.
For years, foreign investment was also discouraged. Land leases in most places are limited to 25 years. Today, however, land is seen in a different light. Land has become a commodity, bought, sold, and leased for money. The FSM has limited resources and must use land, as scarce as it is, for development purposes.
But I, for one, believe that eventually people will have to go back, and work on their land for their own use as well as, for commercial, purposes.
Providing there are no taro patches, grave sites, if it's not some kind of culturally sensitive piece of property, if you've got this piece of property laying there that's otherwise would be doing nothing, Why not generate a little income? Start small and see where it builds.
Over half the people in the FSM still grow much of their own food, harvesting their breadfruit trees, cultivating taro and yams on their land, and raising pigs and chickens for their own consumption. Besides using their land to feed themselves, many use it to provide a small cash income for their families. More than 10 years ago, Senator John Martin recognized the potential for exporting citrus fruits grown on his land in Koshrai to other islands.
When I first started, I only exported to Ponape because I understand they need some limes in Ponape, and now expanded to Chuuk, Guam, and even further back to the Marshall Island. So the volume of my exporting, it's as of now the average is about 3,000 pounds per week, including bananas and all kind of produce, not only citrus.
Senator John Martin sought assistance from the local agriculture department to provide him with additional seedlings and the technical know-how to grow them commercially.
Most of this citrus here, I got it from agriculture. When they first started, you know, every year I have to plant maybe at least 100 or so seedlings. The demand for this produce are really higher nowadays. So I cannot provide meet their their demand. So I have to go around the island and look for the other farmers who has some other produce, so that it could supplement what I have in the farm.
It is basically a family-run operation, with his sons helping him grow and harvest the crops. He hopes that one day he may be able to pass on not only his land, but also his business to his children.
As my grandfather, unfortunately, he passed away. But one thing that he always reminded me is not to sell his property. This is his property. So he advised me not to sell it to any people outside, because in the future I might have lots of kids, and then they have no money to purchase a new land for them. So maybe it will be subdivided later.
Yasuo George agrees that there is potential for growing cash crops.
Citrus is a very important commodity, agriculture commodities, but it's only confined at the moment to Micronesian area, the FSM and to the Marshalls to a certain extent. Because of the quarantine restriction in Guam and Saipan, Kwajalein, I believe, USDA, quarantine restrictions, we have not been able to export, but there is that potential.
I don't know who started the idea of exporting betel nut, but those that I know that did try it are making good money now, and it's a good business.
Leo Chingiel exports betel nut and other produce from Yap to Guam. But unlike Senator Martin, most of what he exports are grown by other landowners.
I mean, each individual here has a limited land. So to supply that demand, I have to ask other people to grow more betel nuts. So when I approach them, they agree with it. Especially those people that are staying in the village and they don't work in town for a salary. They seem to like it. And per shipment, I can only supply, let's say, 100 bags per shipment. But that's only one shipment. And the nuts are not bearing, only bear fruits one bunch per month. And we ship twice a week. So we have to rotate that among the landowners or the producer. So we cannot over-harvest, otherwise we would deplete the resource.
Betel nut exports from Yap are said to bring in $250,000 annually. Leo says that that figure depends on the supply that's available, because the demand is there.
I can only speak of one because that's where I'm sending the beaten lot to. The price there can go down to 20 and it can go up to $60 a bag.
Small cash cropping can generate a surprisingly large amount of money when totals are calculated. Aside from betel nut exports from Yap and citrus fruits from Kashrai, Sakao production on Ponape brings in $1 million a year overall. In addition, there are many other types of small family businesses that generate an income for landowners. Pius Robinson runs a shop on a small piece of property in Buena Chuk. The building used to be a pool parlor and a store run by his cousin until he took it over in 1995 and turned it into a video store.
When we came here first time, and we know that there's only a few stores and few video stores, so we think that maybe video store is good for the people.
Pius recently expanded his business by installing a water machine and is now selling drinking water too.
I know the Chuk have a lot of problem with water, especially drinking water. This water is safe for drinking, and it's very clean, and it is deep. I have my own deep well.
Pius sells about 300 gallons of water a day at 75 cents a gallon. He is already thinking of other services and products to provide his customers, but is limited by the size of the property his store is on.
So I need more space to expand my business. I think it's better if anybody wants to list their land, and list their land for the other people.
I saw the need for lease space for government offices and companies that might be, that want to lease space at the area. So I started the idea from there.
Fred Skilling inherited a piece of land from his father in Kashrai that remained vacant for years until he thought of constructing an office building on it. It was an ambitious plan that many people in the community thought would fail.
It was an area that just, seems impossible to, commercialize it. So it was, I took this reaction as encouragement for my part to work hard and, taking it as a challenge.
The land that was mostly swamp area needed to be filled before construction could take place, a task that took 4 years. More importantly, Fred needed to find money to finance his project.
I first approached the development bank, and the requirement of the development is you have to put up 15% of the equity. So I applied for a loan from development bank, and the loan was amounted to around more than $300,000. And they also at the same time, before starting to construct the project, they require me to put up around 15% of the money. So it's amounted to around 60 or 50 some thousand.
Fred had to borrow from another commercial bank and use whatever savings he had to meet the equity requirements to finish construction of the building. He opened his building 2 years ago and today leases office space to Continental Air Micronesia, the FSM Revenue Office, FSM Customs Office, and the Development Bank. He also runs a small retail shop in the building selling takeout food and videos.
I have about 4 or 5 employees at this time. I try to minimize the cost as much as possible. I guess the important thing is to get enough to repay the loan. At the same time, the maintenance costs and all those, the taxes that we have to pay, and those are big expenses that we have to take care of. I think it's going pretty good after 2 years of operation, and I think the income is pretty, it's more than what I projected before.
If we don't want to take the risk of developing our own land, we can lease our land to an investor for a stipulated period of time so that he can establish a business on it. Sogachi Nene Cholame leased his land in Sapuk, Chuk to a Korean investor in 1995. He signed a joint venture agreement allowing the company to put up a resort and a boat and water tank factory on his land.
The agreement is not like lease, take money from them one time or 50 years. If every year this company going, we have benefit, they give us 25% of that benefit.
Instead of accepting money at the beginning of the lease term, Sogachi agreed to take a percentage of the profits of the business throughout the lease term. He has a stake in the success of the business and maintains good relations with his business partner.
Actually, not only our partner, all this village we call Sabuk, they are one family with us. But first time, they don't like us. But I asked them just to wait 1 year. After 1 year, you think we bad to this society in here, you can chase us away. But after 1 year, if you think we okay, then you guys to be our family. So now it's almost how many years? 4 years. Now they know us and they love us.
The resort and boat and water tank factory has provided jobs for the people in Sapuk. The company presently employs 50 workers from the village.
From beginning, our construction, we not built use outside manpower. When we come here, nothing here, then we call the people who want to work. So maybe about 100 people came. So we start explain to them what we will going to do. We built this building and we built factory, we built boat. After finish, they really proud of what they doing.
Business at the resort has been slow, but the boat and water tank factory has been doing well.
Water tank we sold about 2,600. So boat right now, so far almost 300 boat we sold out. But the mercury outboard we keep on selling out, more than 150 we're selling out now.
If this Korean doesn't come to here, we don't have job. See those guys, they don't have job, they have money now. Our land, nothing. We cannot build our whole business. Now we can money from this business.
It can take years before a business like the Chuk Pacific Resort turns a profit. These investments often operate at a loss for a long time before they are able to recoup the huge outlay for construction. This is a reason why most foreign investors want longer land leases.
Before any foreign investor make a decision to even come in, they would like to know how long can they be given, to secure their, investment. So if we give them a term that is not favorable, definitely they will not, be attracted.
The number of years leasing out the the outside investors are limited. I think it's different from different states. 20 or 25 years. I think investors from outside would be, would like to have that limitation taken off so that they know that they can stay longer and do their business on the island.
I feel there got to be a sort of compromise here and there, that for us to be able to lease the land in such a way or in such a duration that an investment will agree to that kind. I'm sure we can find a way to do that.
Another issue foreign investors often have to face is the numerous land ownership claims in the FSM, which leave investors open to land disputes after the project is well underway or even completed.
actually we experience also. We built up this business, the resort hotel and factory. Then somebody come to us. The factory belong to Dayland. Then our local partner and them, they go to court. If those kind of problem go to investors, then investors will keep up investing money.
T.S. Chung and Sokachi Nenecholame won their case. But the courts in the FSM are littered with similar land disputes which serve to discourage foreign investors. We must be able to provide secure lease agreements which protect the interests of both the foreign investor and landowner. Don Evans has been managing tourist development projects in Yap for almost 20 years. He says landowners should get as much information as they can about the investor and the project before signing a lease.
I think they need to know what the land's going to be used for. They need to know what return is it going to be for them and how soon is the return going to be.
Many times development projects are not pursued because foreign investors and the landowners are not able to agree upon the leasing payments.
Well, I have seen in certain cases where it's simply a matter of the landowner wanting too much money up front for a piece of bare land that's going to be developed. If a businessman comes in and he's going to put several $1,000,000 into a piece of property, it should be approached more from the standpoint that up front the land is very inexpensive, but as the development grows, the lease should be allowed to grow with it.
It is difficult to determine land value in the FSM. The value of land depends in great part on the demand in a particular location at that time. People are often inclined to inflate the value of their land. Carl suggests working out a lease agreement where the landowner is able to review the lease rate during the entire lease period.
As long as he is protected in the lease agreement that he can review the lease rate every 3, 5, 10 years, whatever. If his protections are built in to the lease agreement, then I think everybody makes out that way. Everybody benefits.
Landowners also have to be sensible about the payment schedule they ask for.
I've heard people giving up a big portion of their land just to trade it for an automobile. The automobile wouldn't last for, let's say, 5 years, but the land will still be there for more than 5 years.
You face the problem of then that Micronesian will pay that money, you or use that money in one time, and then the rest of the time, which is depend on the lease term, may not have something for his family and for his clan.
If they get that kind of lump sum and invest in something else, to make it grow, for the future use of the family, that's fine, But if the money is used very carelessly in attending to very temporary need, that may go on, without much impact, to the welfare of the people. That's the danger of having a big lump sum at one time.
Most developers prefer paying a lump sum because it takes care of their land costs for the entire term. Don Evans opted for another type of payment scheme in his lease agreement for the Traders Ridge Resort, which he feels is more beneficial to both the investor and the landowner.
We have a lease agreement where we pay so much per year. We have about 3 acres here. Plus, they get a percentage of our gross and our net profit. So the better we do, the better they do.
This type of scheme is similar to the Chuk Pacific Resort and Micronesian Marine Lease Agreement. A spirit of goodwill and mutual support can be encouraged between the investor and the landowner if both have an interest in the success of the business. Over the centuries, Micronesians have been using their land to support themselves and their families. We have been careful not to squander it, maintaining it for our heirs as well as for our own use. We should be just as careful to preserve the land, but we will have to use it just as our ancestors always have, to provide for our families in the future.